Two big breaking news items on the same day from the Trump administration with big impacts on California. High-speed rail and illegal immigrant welfare could end under new orders from the Trump administration. Coming up, we have all the details of what we're doing to help President Trump clean up the mess in our state. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state representative representing District 75 in the state assembly. Today was a big day on two fronts for California, with great news coming from the Trump administration. And I've said it all along, our best hope to clean up the mess that the liberal Democrats have created in California is President Trump using federal authority to straighten out the mess that they've created in our state. And of course, here at Reform California, we are mobilizing grassroots activists across the state to help President Trump and, of course, move the needle in our own right. We've got two stories I need to cover today. One is to end high-speed rail, and the other is to cut off illegal immigrant welfare using taxpayer funds. But I need you to join the fight. You can't just be passive, sit back and watch Trump try to use executive orders to make a difference in our state. We've got to put the pressure on these liberal politicians inside our state in the upcoming elections. That's where Reform California comes in. Go to the website, reformcalifornia.org, reformcalifornia.org. Here is the site itself. What I want you to do first, if you're not already part of our growing movement, sign up at the bottom of the site. Go to reformcalifornia.org, sign up at the bottom of the site, put in your first name, your last name, your email, your zip code, and your phone number. That will connect you to our movement when we do events in your area, when we endorse candidates in your area, when we recruit candidates for office. We need to let you know what's going on. This is the best way to be part of this growing movement. Also, we need your help because we are outgunned by the dark money of the far left politicians in this state. They get all the special interest money. They also use your taxpayer money in political campaigns against you. The only way to level the playing fields, chip in a contribution of any amount at that website, reformcalifornia.org. The contribution button is at the top right, reformcalifornia.org. All right, two big stories today. First, let's talk about the big announcement on California's boondoggle project, high-speed rail. Now, real quick recap on this wasteful boondoggle. Voters were told by the liberal Democrats in 2008 that if they just borrowed $8 billion, they'd get a nice high-speed rail train across the entirety of our state, from Southern California to Northern California, and it's all about fighting climate change, and it would be convenient for everyone. And it would only cost $8 billion, that the private sector would come in with all the other money that would be necessary. We were lied to. Of course, in 2008, I told you not to vote for that stupid initiative. I said it was a grift, a corrupt project, and it was going to cost far more than they were saying. And it even exceeded my concerns. Instead of $8 billion of taxpayer money, they're now saying it's going to be $130 billion of taxpayer money, and we won't even get a train that goes from Southern California to Northern California. They're just looking at a small segment in Central Valley that nobody's going to use anyway. This is nothing more than a fund the left, dark money, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, grift operation for friends of politicians in Sacramento, the governors, donors, members of the state legislature, the assembly, and the Senate. There's even some Republican legislators that are trying to defend this stupid project that is a complete waste of taxpayer money. Yes. Yes. Sometimes the grift is on both sides. But we've been trying to fight this project and end it and then use the money, the billions of dollars allocated from state taxpayer money, use the money for things like reducing the gas tax, reducing the electricity rates, reducing your insurance rates. These dollars can be reprogrammed in the state budget for things that actually will help you. And that's what our effort has always been about. stop the wasteful spending, and then, of course, take the money and give it back to programs that are actually important. Well, today in Los Angeles, Trump Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy did a press conference where he announced basically the gig is up and the Trump administration is going to be using all of their authorities to shut down this boondoggle project. And the fact that the transportation secretary came here to California, did this press conference, it is absolutely crucial, a step to make sure that people are put on notice that the money is going to stop. The federal government's taking immediate action. They're clawing back their money. They're auditing and investigating. We need to put an end to the boondoggle. I'm going to play Sean Duffy's clip at the very end so you can get a flavor for the big announcement today. But bravo, President Trump and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy for taking action on this project. This is something that we've been working with the Trump administration on for the past several months since he won the election in November, to make sure they understand that this is nothing more than a scam and that we have to cut off the federal money immediately. Now, in Sacramento, we still may get stuck with this project because the Democrats are saying we can use state money. And they're going to try to keep this project on life support and keep the grift going, which is why I've introduced legislation to end the high-speed rail program and put those monies back into programs and return the dollars to taxpayers. The second big announcement comes in the form of an executive order from President Trump. Here's the executive order itself: ending taxpayer subsidization of open borders. And it basically goes out, and this is the actual executive order. I want to read the text to you. It says, to prevent taxpayer resources from acting as a magnet and fueling illegal immigration to the United States, and to ensure to the maximum extent permitted by law that no taxpayer-funded benefits go to unqualified aliens, the head of each executive department of the federal government shall identify all federally funded programs administered by the agency that currently permit illegal aliens to obtain any cash or non-cash public benefit, and, consistent with applicable law, take all appropriate actions to align such programs with the purposes of this order. Ensure, consistent with applicable law, that federal payments to states and localities do not, by design or effect, and these are key terms, by design or effect, facilitate subsidization or promotion of illegal immigration or abet so-called sanctuary policies. This is so important. There's other elements here that apply to the federal government, but this language here applies to state government as well. And the program that I want to point out is one that I exposed just last week. As you may know, last week in the Assembly Budget Committee, I exposed the fact that California state taxpayers are paying nearly $10 billion of state taxpayer funds for the state Medi-Cal program to give illegal immigrants free taxpayer-funded healthcare benefits. Now, the state politicians will say, well, that's state money. It's not federal money. But Medi-Cal as a whole in California is largely funded by federal taxpayer money. The overhead, the administration, the enrollment programs are all funded by federal tax dollars. So this executive order, if aggressively implemented, and I hope the Trump administration will aggressively implement it, and I see no reason why they wouldn't, could actually cut off California from all Medi-Cal dollars if there's any sort of subsidization. And again, the words in the executive order that are key: by design or effect. So if you commingle funds from the federal government with state funds to give illegal immigrant welfare, in essence, by design or effect, the federal government is helping, aiding and abetting with its taxpayer money the implementation of a welfare program for an illegal immigrant. Now, of course, California politicians will argue, no, we're just using taxpayer money from the state. But you can't divorce the commingling of money. You can't separate the money out when you're looking at overhead for Medi-Cal, the overall eligibility reviews, the administration of the program. All of those are funded by taxpayer funds from the federal government, and all that money would be put in jeopardy if state politicians negligently, recklessly, and wastefully continue to give your state taxpayer money through the Medi-Cal program to illegal immigrants. So stay tuned on this. I could see the federal government taking action and threatening to cut off all Medi-Cal dollars. We don't want to see that happen. There's a lot of good people who are citizens who rely on Medi-Cal for healthcare benefits. We don't want that to be cut off, but we certainly want to use every bit of leverage we can to stop the flow of your state taxpayer money to illegal immigrants for freebies, welfare payments like free healthcare. $10 billion is a lot of money. It needs to end. We need to put that money back into priorities that citizens can benefit from. All right, I want to share real quick the Sean Duffy press conference. We have a couple highlights of that press conference that I want to play for you. But remember, none of this work can be done without your help. So go onto the website, reformcalifornia.org, sign up to be part of our growing movement, share our website with your friends, urge them to get into the fight, and of course, chip in a contribution to power this movement statewide. Until next time, I'm Carl DeMaio. Well, we have the clip that I want to play. Here is Sean Duffy, the Transportation Secretary, announcing the actions they're taking against California's high-speed rail boondoggle project.
So we're here to talk about the California high-speed rail project. So when originally conceived, the voters of California voted in Proposition 1A that they would have a high-speed rail from LA to San Francisco. It was going to be done by 2020, and it was going to cost $33 billion. And people were excited. They were thrilled. Take people off the road, out of the air, put them on rail, move them quickly. It was an exciting time, exciting promises for an exciting project. Where are we today? Well, today we are severely, no pun intended, off track. So as we sit here, we're now looking at a piece of the project that's going to go from Merced to Bakersfield. And that project, thus far, is going to cost the California taxpayer and the federal taxpayer, at best estimates, $33 to $35 billion. At best, that portion of the project is not going to be completed until 2033, 2035, way after this whole project was to be completed. And with the $15.7 billion already invested in a project that has given you bridges here to my left and to my right, bridges to nowhere, right? No high-speed rail track has been laid for $16 billion. The federal government has invested $2.7 billion to this project. California has invested the rest. Joe Biden has promised another $4 billion for Merced to Bakersfield to complete the project. The problem is California is still short $6.5 billion. California doesn't have the money to complete the project, even with the federal promises that were made by the last administration. So the question becomes, what do we do? Well, I can't make decisions for the great state of California, but we do have to be responsible for the tax dollars that are spent from the federal government. And there are wonderful high-speed rail projects that are being proposed to the Federal Rail Administration, projects that will connect cities where they have great timelines and they have great budgets. Some of them are federal and private funding mechanisms in play. One of those that's been proposed is Bright Line West, going from LA to Las Vegas. Seems like a project that is worthy of investment. But this project, if completed 400 miles from LA to San Francisco, at best, it'll cost $106 billion. Now, most people will say that is a rosy estimate. There's no way it's going to be completed for $106 billion, which, just to do some simple math, that's 3 times the original proposal for how much this project would cost to build 400 miles of track. And so I think the question becomes, what should we do in California? What should we do in the federal government? And so President Trump has thought about this project. He's talked about the project. And I think he was very kind when he said, this project has been mismanaged. I would agree it has been more than likely mismanaged. And the president has called for an investigation. And what's that investigation about? Again, Joe Biden has promised another $4 billion to the project, to the Central Valley. And the question becomes, should that $4 billion be invested? And so I'm going to exercise my authority as the Secretary of Transportation. I'm going to direct the Federal Railroad Administration, or FRA, to initiate a compliance review of funding to the California High-Speed Rail Authority. This review is going to focus on that $4 billion, and it was for 2 construction projects as part of the Merced to Bakersfield construction. This is going to help determine whether billions of dollars in taxpayer money should remain committed to California's high-speed rail. And we're going to look at whether California high-speed rail has actually complied with the agreements that they've signed with the federal government. And we can't just say we're going to give money and then not hold states accountable to how they spend that money. Are they spending it per the agreements that they've made with the federal government? And I think as we looked over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, I think there's a demand by the American taxpayer to make sure their money is being spent well. And to make sure that the California voting population, the California taxpayer, understands, even though they may be excited about this project, the project's not going to happen. There is no timeline in which you're going to have a high-speed rail that goes from LA to San Francisco. That timeline does not exist. And the estimates are incredibly rough on the dollar front. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as responsible legislators and those in the federal government to take a hard look at how we spend our money. And if California wants to continue to invest, that's fine. But we in the Trump administration are going to take a look at whether this project is worthy of a continual investment. And so with that, we're going to take questions after, but I want to make sure that the legislators have, but they follow this extensively. It's been a hot topic in California. I want to address the protesters for a moment, if I could. I think they were chanting, "Build the rail." It's been 17 years and $16 billion, and no rail has been built. So if you want to go protest somewhere, if you want to shout at someone, go to the governor's mansion. Go talk to Democrats in the legislature who have brought us this crappy project, right? So we've seen over the course of the last month what DOGE has exposed with regard to fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're done with it. And you know what? You're going to have people who love fraud, who love waste, who love trains to nowhere. But all of us up here, we do not love fraud, waste, and abuse. We are going to use the taxpayer money efficiently and effectively, and this is a boondoggle.
Mr. Secretary? Hello. Do you think if you audit this project and you get the right leadership, authority, and contractors, is it viable?
So that's a really good question. The U.S. DOT does not build, right? We fund. So this is a question for the state of California. Is there a way, and by the way, your senators, your U.S. senators, they love the project. I've spoken to both of them. They like the project. I told them I'm going to work with both of them. I'll give them advance notice of some of the thoughts I have on this project. But can California figure out how to build a project in an allotted amount of time, within an allotted amount of money? Because right now, all the estimates have been wrong, whether it's on time or on money. And I think the taxpayers in California have a right to know, hey, Governor, what's your plan? What are you going to do with this project? The voters said they wanted this high-speed rail, 400 miles between your 2 biggest cities. That has not been delivered. We have no idea the cost or the time frame in which it would be completed. So ask Governor Newsom, what is your plan, Governor? How are you going to complete this project? Because if you ask the legislators who know this project really well, they're not very hopeful that it can get done. So if you want to bust out and bust through the red tape and actually start to build and come out with a plan to the legislature and to the federal government, I'm all ears.
That does it for today. I'm Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California and a California State Representative. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. But before you click away, please subscribe to this channel and click that notification button so you get updated when we post new episodes. Plus, like this video and share it with your friends so that we can help spread our message across the state. Reform California with Carl DeMaio is paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly.